Hey guys, it's Luis from B-Flex. Today I'm going to show you how to align your designs and make sure you get the perfect spot every time. Consistency is key when decorating. You want to make sure you get the right spot every single time. So in this video, we'll be going over proper placement of graphics across different locations in a t-shirt, as well as different methods you can implement to get the right location every single time you're trying to replicate this. All right, so first let's talk about decoration parameters and placement really. Most decorations are done on t-shirts, and then typically you have 4 spots that are being decorated. It's typically the chest, the shoulder or the sleeve, then you got the back, and most commonly the left pocket. So right now we have this 100% poly shirt that we're going to be decorating in this video actually, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to find, what out of these 4 or 5 locations that we're going to be decorating, we're going to find what are proper parameters for placement. So first of all, we have to identify 2 things: our color and each side of the color. These are points of reference for 2 of the placements that we're going to be doing. So the first one and the easiest one is going to be the chest. The chest is the most common on t-shirts, and typically what you want to do is obviously center your design with the tag with the center of the color. That's the first thing to do. The following thing to do is to determine the height of the design. Once you've centered your design, which should be about 7 to 9 inches wide depending on the size of the t-shirt. That will depend on the graphic you're using, how big the graphic needs to be, but rule of thumb is 7 to 9 inches wide. The height doesn't really matter, but we want to know where our design is going to be starting from. Now, a general rule of thumb is to keep it about 3 inches from the collar seam, 3 to 4 inches, depending again on the size of the t-shirt. Maybe a small t-shirt, you could do 3 inches from the collar. Now, a large or extra large t-shirt, I would go closer to 4 inches. This will make sure that your design isn't, right next to the collar and it looks misplaced. So you want to make sure you get it right here, dead center on the chest. So that's what we're going to do. Then the next thing to do is since we're in the front, we're going to do the left pocket. Now this is another tricky one because now it's a little bit more difficult. You don't have a center line to work with. So one thing we can do is use the left side of our collar as a guidance point. This is typically going to be the center line of your design. This determines where the center of your design will be, typically being something a little bit more squared. If it's something that's a little bit longer, you may want to adjust a little bit, just because if it's a longer design, you may run into the center of your shirt and that will look a little bit odd. So typically designs here are around 3 to 4 inches wide in order to stay in the chest area and not, again, go into the center line or go into the sleeve section. So this is really easy because now we have, let's say, 3 to 4 inches from our collar right here, and then we just measure our center line, and now we have found the spot where we decorate with our pocket right here. So that's the 2 designs, and then I'm going to be teaching you a couple techniques to find these locations so you can get consistent with placement every single time. Now another really famous one is the sleeve one. Now this one tends to be a little bit easier to work with. Why? Because most t-shirts, whenever they come already folded, they have their center seam already done right here, which is actually one thing you can do. If in case you don't know where the center of the sleeve is, you can heat press or you can iron it and find that center spot. So that already gives you a center line for it. All you have to do is you're determining how far away you want to go from the seam. Typically you want to go about 1 inch away from the seam, just to make sure that you don't run into problems with pressure with this seam right here. So now we have the sleeve, which can be either one. It's the same process for this. Now we go to the back. The back can vary a lot depending on what we're doing. If you're trying to do like a name and a number, then obviously the name would be at the top, which would be about 2 to 3 inches from the collar. Again, collar being our reference point. Then we draw a center line, and then our number would be about 3 inches away from our name. So it would be in this location right here. In this case, we're going to be doing numbers, just numbers with our with this t-shirt. So we're going to be applying it a little bit lower than we would normally apply our name, since we're not going to have a name here. Again, these are just suggestions. There are many ways you can decorate t-shirts, but these tend to be good rules of thumb whenever you're applying designs in different locations. Now that we've covered like different locations that you can apply graphics to, let's go ahead and work on what techniques we can use to find these locations every single time. All right, so now that we've discussed how to find different locations, we're gonna now go over some techniques, how to make sure we get the right spot every single time. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're looking for consistency here. We're looking to make sure that all the pieces are looking the same, and they have the same spot. Nothing is crooked, nothing is lower or higher than the other pieces in our designs. So we're gonna go and discuss the first method, which I think is the simplest and easiest to begin with, and it's the most empiric one, which has a higher margin of error, but it's the easiest one to start with. Now the first one is, as I mentioned, you want to have a center line for your design. So the first thing that you can do is the fold method. Now this was really easy, because all you got to do is fold your shirt in half and then place it on the heat press, and then press it for 2 to 3 seconds. And this is going to give you a crease in the middle. It's going to draw a line, basically a crease in the middle, that will determine your center line for your design. Now that's very easy, right? Now that we've determined that, we already have our center line. The next thing to determine is the height of the design. So there is also a little guide that you can use for that. Again, there's nothing scientific, nothing. It's just the 3-finger method. You place 3 fingers here. I would say 3 to 4 fingers, depending on the width of your fingers. For me, it could be 3. And that will give you about 3 inches from the seam of the collar. And that right there gives you the spot. Once you have the center line, you've got the 3 fingers, 3-4 fingers on there. And that will give you the beginning, the top of your design already centered and everything. If you have a design, which I'll show you in a second. This is gonna be our shoulder X's. If you ever have a design and you want to determine what the middle of the design is, all you have to do is grab both ends of the design and then just crimp it here in the center, and you're gonna get a center line. There's gonna be a little line right here in your polyester carrier that will tell you, hey, this is the center of the design. Now you've got a center design. So that's some of the simple methods to start with as a decorator. You can move on to a little more advanced method, which again, a lot of times you may be able to place this by eye, and these methods are good for certain applications, but a lot of this you're gonna get just with feel and experience. One good rule of thumb is to, a lot of people have markers too. What I mean by that is you can grab a simple sheet of paper per se, and we said we needed 3 inches or so. So we're just gonna measure 3 inches with our measuring tape. We'll cut it out. There. And this is one of those techniques that just give you consistency every time. You can have a piece of cardboard, you can have a piece of paper, just whatever you want to use that remains the same size, because again, you want to stay consistent. So if I have this piece of paper that says it's 3 inches, all I have to do is place it here. If I already have a center line, I place it here. I know every single time I'm going to be hitting 3 inches on my design. I could have one for 3.5 if I'm doing medium shirts. I could have one for 4 inches if I'm doing large shirts. So that way you have a consistent method. It's all about it. I mean, there's are many ways to determine this, but it's all about staying consistent with what you're doing, because it's going to give you consistent results. So there you go. You know, with this piece, I already know every time I place it here, I'm getting 3 inches, you know, from my collar to the top of my design. So that's another method to show you guys. The following method is a little bit more complicated, but it's a great rule of thumb to get into. It's using a T-square. This is actually very famous in our social media. You guys will see it in our TikToks and some of our Instagram reels. And it's a new tool that's being used in order to determine where to place their designs. This will give you very accurate placements. So it's comprised of 2 little pieces. First is this ruler right here that's supposed to be aligned with your collar. Like I said at the beginning of the video, everything's about the collar. Everything revolves around the collar. So you center this with a collar, and it tells you here, align seams of apparel with arrows, meaning that you want to make sure that you're centered. In this case, I'm centered on this arrow and on this arrow. So they're right there on the seam, and I've got my center line. So I didn't have to draw it. I got this tool to do it for me. Now, the following piece is actually a sliding piece that goes up and down the shirt and helps you determine where to place your design. So as you will see David do it in some of our videos, he grabs this right here, he places it, he centers it on the shirt like this, and basically he determines what, you know, where he wants to place it like this, following along the center line. In this case, you know, if we want to stay, it's telling us right here, this is 3 inches. We can stay right here. We can do away with this part of the ruler. We can press down here and do away with this part of the ruler, and we've also found our center point. You know, so these are different techniques that we can use to find our locations every single time in order to stay consistent with our placement. Now that I've taught you a little bit about where everything should be and how to find those spots every single time, let's go ahead and get pressing with all this, okay? Another final method to find placements on your t-shirt, whatever blank you're trying to press, is laser alignment. That's a tool that's been getting very popular amongst professional decorators, and it's a laser grid basically that you can place on top of your heat press, and that will project a grid onto the platen so that you can get consistent results every time. You'll be able to find your center line and everything with this laser grid. So that's another method. It's a little bit more advanced, but I think I've progressed you through every single method of alignment. You can choose what works for you. At the end of the day, it's what works for you and what helps you be consistent with your results. All right, so let's get to pressing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna place our t-shirt on our platen. Now, before we even do any sort of location finding here with the t-shirt, the first thing we want to do is make sure it's aligned properly on the press. You want to make sure you have the equal distance of fabric, especially with larger t-shirts like this one. This is an extra large. You want to make sure you have equal distribution of fabric. Otherwise, all the centering on the platen will do nothing for us. So there we go. It looks like it's nice and even right there. So we found our center, and we can check ourselves by lifting the collar. As always, that's the point of reference. We want to make sure, in this case, I'm gonna start with the T-square. So for the T-square, we actually need the collar to be here, but once we're done placing our design, we're actually gonna scoot it back so we don't press any of these seams and we don't get uneven pressure with our design. So again, we're just going to make sure that our seams are centered, and we find our center line right there. So let's see. Seems like we got it. We're gonna be doing the difficult placement with this one, which is gonna be, you know, for a football club, it's gonna be the crest. So again, like I mentioned, you can slide this piece right here. Now we're looking at this center line right there where the seam is on the collar, on the left side of the collar. That's gonna be our center point. Now, as I told you, you find the center point of your design by just crimping it right here so we can see our line right there. So we're gonna put our line in line with the collar right there. Boom, we got it. So now we're gonna bring it down about 4 inches, which we can see right here is about 4 inches from the seam. So now we have our spot for the crest of the soccer team. So we're gonna be lifting this away, and we're gonna be lifting this away as well. So we got that done. Now we can scoot this back, and we have proper placement of our crest. Now the next thing we're gonna do, since we have a soccer jersey, is our number. In this case, we're going for the 17. And in this case, another way you can do it is you have a tape measure, which will be really cheap to have, and our press is 16 by 20, so we know we've got 16 inches width-wise. So all we gotta do is find the center of our design. Again, simply finding that center line. Boom. And we align that with the number 8. There we go. So that's it, that's nice and centered. Now we have to measure for height. In this case, we're going to be scooting it down just a tad bit so it's not too close to our crest right here. So now we have the front of our shirt already done. All we have to do is get pressing. This is Gimme 5 Evo Special in the color gold. So this press is at 285 degrees for 4 seconds. All right, that's it for us. So we're gonna be doing a hot peel on this guy. Just wanna make sure. One cool trick whenever you're doing big designs like this, in order to not rip the shirt away from the press, is to either pull up or pull down, because most fabrics are stretchable. They're two-way stretch, so they stretch to the sides, but they don't stretch up and down, so you can pull better with big designs like this. We're gonna throw this away. Now we've got the front of our t-shirts looking nice for us. Now we're gonna do the sleeves. Sleeves are a little bit tricky, but like I mentioned, you can always find a center line in the seams right here, close to the seams. There's a fold line right there for the t-shirt. So all we have to do is just follow along the center line. And for me, it's a little bit tricky because I have a drawer style platen, so this moves around a little bit, so I have to hold the t-shirt. You can tuck it under, like on the table and whatnot. But all we have to do is make sure we have that surface ready. You can iron out just to make sure that it's nice and flat and even. Again, center of our design, and we simply place it about an inch away from the seam. And we center it right there. Let me scoot this all the way in. 4 seconds at 285 degrees. Boom, there you go, look at that. It's looking nice and golden. Now we're gonna go with the next sleeve, same process. You should already have a middle line. So it should be nice and easy to find. Okay. We already have the middle point that we found here, so we're just simply going to align it with the center. Place it. 4 more seconds. This is a very quick final. This will save you time, especially if you're doing this sort of applications where you have to do multiple presses. 4 seconds at a time is better than 12, 15 seconds at a time. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and go to the back. We'll find the back of our design. And we're gonna be doing the big numbers again. Now, normally, as I mentioned, you would have, the last name right here, and then there would be obviously a drop off for the name. Now we're gonna use the same point of reference that we did for the last press. The numbers, since we're gonna keep it at the same height as the ones that we press, if you can look underneath, they're about the same height as these numbers. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the collar away. In this case, we're gonna make sure that we get it away from the pressing platen right there. We're gonna find our center. Boom. Then we're gonna find the center of the platen. And then a good point of reference, and it's always nice to have points of reference whenever you're pressing. It's little tips and tricks that you do. If you find this, the number starts at about 1 inch from the bottom of the platen. So that's what we're gonna use as a reference this time to get the number at the same exact height as the numbers in the front. So nice and centered. We can even move this over the design to make sure we get the center line correctly. We're about 1 inch from the bottom of the platen. There we go. Our design's centered. Perfect. We simply slide in and another 4 seconds. Now this is something that will move along faster. Right now I'm slowing it down, trying to teach you different things that you can do with it. Obviously when you're doing production, you're doing decoration, time is of the essence, which is why this vinyl is so great to work with. But you'll be able to do this much faster than I do it, with a lot of practice. And that's the idea. Just, you need speed, you need consistency. All right, so we've got it. This is our t-shirt on the front. We've got the sleeves on the side. And we've got the number at the bottom, which is the same height as the other number. All we would need really, and what we're missing is my last name right here. So that would finish up the customization of this t-shirt, So there you go, you got it. So this is, different placement, different applications, and different methods of finding how to find the right spot every single time. I hope this video was helpful and you were able to learn a little bit more about placement and how to get consistent with your designs. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell button so you get notified whenever we post more videos like this one. And also go to bflexamerica.com where you can find more of our products. Follow us on social media, interact with us, message us, and ask us if you have any questions.